just, I guess, so I'll do a quick introduction. So I'm Alex Schlega. I'm an MVP for I've been an MVP 4 times. I'm mostly blogging. I'm not doing presentations that often. Yeah, so here's one one presentation I'm gonna do today. So this is not so much a development presentation, right? I mean, there are elements of development there, so I will actually have a JavaScript on screen at some point during this presentation, but it's more about reporting, and it's more about document generation in Power Platform. It's to kind of it's to see what we can do with the options we have in Power Platform compared to what we have out of the box in the, let's say, classic model-driven applications. And I just have a few slides which I wanted to show first to kind of set the context, and from there I'll go to the demo. So if that's okay, I'll just show you those slides first. Okay, so this is a starter, but then, so I think really what I've been working on a few projects in the last years, right? And then every time, and even before, like every time there is a question of how do we do reporting, how do we do print documents, how do we prepare printed forms. Before we used to have SSRS, and we still have it. But you know how maybe about a year ago, Microsoft still hadn't updated SSRS development tools, so they were still requiring Visual Studio 2015. And so when talking to the clients about which reporting tool to use for Power Platform projects, it was a little awkward, because you would start talking about SSRS, but they were saying, why is it Visual Studio 2015 at the time when 2017 is there, or 2019 even? So we looked at some other options, and then just about that time, that's when Microsoft Power BI team released something which is called Power BI Paginated reports, which is not the same as Power BI reports, which are dashboards mostly, right? But then Paginated reports, when we looked into that, it turned out to be, it's almost a successor to the SSRS. SSRS actually, right now, SSRS has been updated, so it's on the latest, or at least on the Visual Studio 2017, or maybe even 2019, I'm not sure at the moment. But so SSRS has been updated since then. But Power BI Paginated reports are still something we are using, and I kind of prefer to use them these days, except that there is licensing involved, as usual. Like, there's no way we can avoid licensing when talking about all of this. So, but I'll go through this, and then another option is Word templates, which are Word templates in Power Automate, which are somewhat different from the classic Word templates which we have in the model-driven applications. And there is a bit more power there in Power Automate. I'll show why, and I'll explain this more during the demo. But for now, what I wanted to summarize here is that basically, when we start thinking about the reports and about the print forms, it doesn't have to be a model-driven app, it could be a Canvas app as well. But when we start thinking about that, like, there are these kind of questions. How do we create print forms? How do we create pixel-perfect reports? Those where we can arrange everything the way we want, right? And how do we prepare multi-page or table reports where it's not just one record as you have in the classic Word templates, for example, but it's more like a set of records in a single document or report. How do we schedule reports again? Because with SSRS in the cloud, we cannot do that. I mean, there might be some hacks there, but in general, because we don't have access to the reporting service, we cannot schedule those SSRS reports. Same thing with the Word templates, right? So we can create a Word template, but we cannot schedule an email to deliver that Word template, classic Word template, I mean, to the email. How do we set up subscriptions, which is very similar to scheduling, but like you might be able to set up subscriptions with the tool, or you might be able to just schedule that and that becomes your subscription. So the answer so far, like if we don't think about those new options, that's we can export to Excel, we can use in-app report wizard, which is very, like both of those are very limited in terms of reporting really. Well, actually, maybe I was fast to say that, but so let's continue though. So we use advanced find and basically function, maybe dashboards in the model-driven app. And then there are actual reporting and document generation options. That's SSRS and that's classic Word templates. So again, all those have limitations. Like sometimes you cannot do subscriptions, sometimes you cannot integrate with Power Automate, you cannot send emails, you cannot, different types of limitations. So let's go to the next one. So from the Power Platform perspective, what we have, we now have Word templates in Power Automate, and they are not actually Dataverse specific. So even this is a Dataverse Summit, and they mostly work with Dataverse. I mean, model-driven applications is what I do every day. But Power Automate Word templates are not actually Dataverse specific. You can source data from about anywhere as soon as you have a connector, and then you just use a template to define the structure of the layout of your document, and then you provide that data from the Power Automate to the Word template through the connector, and you get your document generated. And it doesn't have to be for a single record, it can be for multiple records. So it doesn't have those classic limitations like 100 related records, for example, in the subgrid, or it doesn't have, like I said, it doesn't have to stick to just a single record, it can be multiples. And actually, you don't even have to use fetch or web API, but you can if you want. And the difference compared to the out-of-the-box Word templates is that you can actually prepare the data first. So you can use fetch, you can use web API, you can use anything you want. You can even get data from somewhere else, not from Dataverse. And then you prepare that data as an object, and then you pass that to the Word template so that it then shows it in the document. And yes, this is all integrated with Power Automate, so you can just, as in this example on the screen right now, you can go to, you can store the template in SharePoint, and then you can use a connector and an action there, which is called populate a Microsoft Word template, to grab that document, that template, and in this case, I just have one parameter on the screenshot, but in the demo there will be more. So here I'm just passing company name, and there is a test parameter, sorry, test value for that parameter, and that then shows up on the document. So that's Word templates, but then also there is SSRS. Actually, I keep calling it SSRS sometimes, but it's really Power BI Paginated reports. The story here is that Power BI Paginated reports are basically, in some way, this is still SSRS because, and you'll see it in a few minutes, it's using, so the reports are written in the same language. It's very similar tool. So it's not Visual Studio, but there is a spare dedicated tool in Power BI, which is called Power BI Report Builder. And in that tool, you can build those reports. And when you save the file, when you save the report, it's saved in the same format as in the RDL format, which is like report definition language. So I never tried, but I have a feeling if you opened an existing report, SSRS report in the report builder, in the Power BI report builder, it would show up, except that, well, the connections will be broken and the data source might have to be updated, but the layout of the report would still be, might still be readable. So one kind of advantage of Power BI Paginated compared to SSRS is that instead of fetch XML, you can use SQL. So you can just define a query and connect directly to the database. And of course, it's not the real database, it's that TDS connector, which Microsoft allowed us to use some time ago, right? But now Power BI can utilize that connector to that connection to so that we can build reports. And again, this is integrated with Power Automate. So there is an action which allows us to export those reports into a file. And then once exported, it can be sent by email, for example. And just to kind of, because there is sometimes confusion, right? So Power BI Paginated reports is not the same as Power BI reports and dashboards. It's there is a separate tool which we need to use to develop these things, but it's still under the Power BI umbrella. So let's go to the demo. And I just want to, just give me a second, I'll bring up the, so first I need to minimize this so it's not confusing us. And then here is, so imagine you have an opportunity, and the reason I picked an opportunity is because in the model-driven application, like this is our sales application, we have an opportunity here. The reason I picked it is because out of the box there is already a Word template, which is a classic Word template, so I can download that opportunity summary, and I can just show you what's available out of the box. Basically, the same can be done for custom entity, right? But again, there is already out of the box Word document, or Word template, which I can use. So if I open that, the one which was just generated, and it shows up on a different screen, just a second. So this is how it looks like, the out of the box one. But of course, I cannot send it by email, like I said before. If I wanted to subscribe to this, I wouldn't be able to. This is all manual. I have to go there, I have to click it, I have to open it. Another option which is available here is running an SSRS report, which in this case, there is nothing out of the box we would have here, but if we had an SSRS report, it would be there. So now, just to kind of show you the end result, and then during the next like half an hour, I'll walk you through how I got there, right? So here is the ribbon button. So if I click that, what's going to happen is going to call Power Automate, and it's going to download Word a version of the same opportunity summary, which is generated based off a Word template. So if I click this, I will see generating document message, and then not sure how long it's going to take. So here it is. So here's my summary. You see the name is different. I have some control over the name of this, but if I open it, and again, it shows up on a different screen. Just a second. So here's the new version. So there is a table here. There are some values there, which I'll show you how I passed in there. There is a company name. I didn't actually update the whole thing. What I did, I just took that original document, which I downloaded from here, and then I updated some of the elements on that document just so that I could use it as a Word template in Power Automate. That's one option, so I can do it from there. Another option, which I'll show you, and again, it's kind of the end result, right? And I'll show you. So for that, I'll have to go to the flow, and again, I'll go back to the details of that flow just a little later. But right now, what I want to do is make it so that it uses Power BI to generate that document. So the one which I had before this summary, this is done with the Word template. The one which I'm going to use now, this is going to be done with with Power BI Paginated report. And I just have an action here which kind of controls whether the flow will be using Word document or if it will be using Power BI. So now that it's Power BI and it is saved, so I can go back here and I can do this again, and you'll notice the difference. Well, of course, you'll notice the difference when it shows up because they are somewhat different in the layout, etc. But also this takes at least 30 seconds, and that's a limitation of the Power BI action because it's literally taking 30 seconds. If I go back here to the flow, and if I just open the run history of the flow, and look at what's happening now, you'll see that it's probably still running depending on how quickly. No, actually, so the summary just showed up. But you see how the previous run took just a couple of seconds. This specific run, the last one, it took 33 seconds. And if I go into the details, and again, we'll go to the flow in more details just a little later, but right now I wanted to show you this. So the export to file for paginated reports power action, it took exactly, well, 32 seconds. So it always takes just about 30 seconds because there is a, I guess there is a delay in terms of how this connector connects to the Power BI API. So that's it is still usable. I mean, I clicked the summary, I got this downloaded, so you can see how summary 5 docs is here, so I can open it. You can see how the layouts are different because I didn't really replicate the whole layout in the Power BI, but it's still kind of, it still shows the beginnings of the opportunity summary. Like there is a status, there is opportunity, there is account name, there is that list of products with the prices and amounts and names of the products and the totals. So everything is here. And now, once you saw what's the end result, I just wanted to kind of walk you through how this is done. All right, so let me go to this. So I'll start with Power BI paginated reports. And in order to start using Power BI paginated reports, you need a tool which is called Power BI Report Builder. So that one is available from Microsoft right here. If you look up, what did I look there? So if I go to Google and just look up Power BI Report Builder, then you will have it right here, Power BI Report Builder. And then if you just go there, you can download the tool. So the way this works is that you don't even need an account, to be honest, because here I am connected, I signed in, but in order to build the report, you don't need that account in Power BI. You just need to be able to connect to the Dataverse environment, so you need to be a user there. It's only to publish this report, that's when you actually need to have a license, and that's where you need a special capacity in Power BI, so I'll explain that in a few minutes. But just now, so if I wanted to start a new report, and I'll probably just show you how that's done, and then I'll switch to the existing report. So if I wanted to start a new report, I can go here, I can actually, let me see, so yeah, new report, blank report. And if you saw SSRS before, if you worked with the SSRS in the Visual Studio, you'll probably, this interface should look very similar because like here in the middle, you have the report canvas, then you have report body, you have all the things you can put on the canvas, and then you have this properties tab, which you can use to, or properties window, which you can use to update certain properties of the report itself and of the elements of the report. But this is just the layout, right? So here's the kicker, I guess, for us working with Dataverse, is that I can go here, I can add a data source, and then I can say I want to connect to Dataverse. And here I'll just provide maybe a name. Let's say I want to look at the, so that's the data source name. So that's my Dataverse actually. So then I can go here and build the connection. I hope I can go here and build the connection. Yeah, here it is. So then what I need is my the URL of, actually it's not the URL, it's just the server name of my environment. So here I can put it, and that seems to be a bit too much. But then what do we use? Azure authentication. So here the account I am using is a test account, which is connected to, which has Power BI license. So, and then let's test the connection. It does ask for the password, of course, so I need to connect there, and then once I've signed in, the connection is successful, so I have the connection, I have the data source now. And that's, again, so if you remember how it looked like in the SSRS, that's pretty much the same window here on the left side. So now I go here, I can add a data set. This is where I don't need to worry about fetch XML anymore. I can just pick the data source. I can pick, I can specify the data source name. Oh, not and then here, I can just use SQL to select everything from, and let's see. So that worked just like that. So I can go there now. I can go to the list of to the fields, which the columns which are coming from the opportunity table. If you think of that, that's really not just the opportunity table, because there is also like, let me see if I can make it bigger. I probably can't. So there are fields like created by name, for example, right here, right? So there is created by, but there is also created by name. Some of them are already expanded, and I could, the simplest thing I could do right now, I could just insert a table right here, and I can throw in those fields like created by name, and everything else might be created on. And like I can pick and choose, right? So there is a whole list, a whole lot of columns from the opportunity table which are available here, and then I can actually run the report without even publishing it anywhere. So I can go here, I can run it. Here I have my list of opportunities. You see how there are GUIDs, but also those GUIDs are already expanded, so there is that lookup name right here, and then there are dates and everything else. And if I didn't even want to publish this anywhere, like one thing I could do if I didn't want to maybe publish it in the central location, so maybe I don't need connection, Power Automate integration. Maybe it's just something for a lone user there who needs to build this report every now and then. So I could just share their DL file and ask them to download the report builder, and they could just use it like this, because from here they can export to PDF, they can export to Word, to Excel, everywhere. But this is not, like, until it is published, this is not really integratable. So you cannot do things like this ribbon button and integrate with something which is running locally. So from here, instead of trying to rebuild the report I already have, I'll just open an existing file, which is, so I'll go to, sorry, so I'll go to here, this one, yeah, I think that's the one I need, so I don't need to save anything here. Instead, I will open that opportunity summary report, which we kind of saw before when it was downloaded. There's the report, right? So there is one data source here. There is another data source for the products. They are both connected. So there is a parameter which is passed to the report. So if I wanted to run this report right now, then there is default value for the parameter. So I can, again, I can view the report. It builds it for their specific opportunity ID. But if I when I start using it in the flow, I will just pass that opportunity ID as a parameter. So now the next thing which happens is that from here I have to publish it. I have to publish it to what is called Power BI service, and not just to Power BI service. I have to pick a premium workspace. So here I already have published it, but I will just do it once again. So let's do it. So what is the date today? It's the 20th. So let's say November 20. So let's publish it as a new report. I publish it there. It goes to the Power BI Premium Workspace. So while it's doing that, the trick or the caveat about Power BI is that you have to have a premium workspace, which is, to be honest, quite expensive. So there is a way to, and I was lucky that the project I am on right now, that kind of there is already Power BI Premium, right? So we could use that. So right now what I am doing for the demo, I am actually using what is called A1 SKU, which is more for testing and development, but it's relatively affordable. I think it's something like $1 per hour. So it's not extremely, but the production premium capacity that costs about like it's thousands of dollars. So it depends on, well, like sometimes you might not have it. But so let's go to the premium workspace in Power BI, because that's where we need to see what happened to the report. And just let me find it. So here's the here is my test user for Power BI, and that so basically you go to Power BI, and then once you're in Power BI, you see those workspaces. So you can pick that premium workspace, and you see how this report was just uploaded there. In terms of security, it doesn't inherit all the security from Dataverse. So because it's using Dataverse connections, so it's using it's not going to show what the user is not supposed to see. So here, though, I have to, because it was just published, I have to go to the data source credentials and update the credentials. So you see how I can say that only if a user goes to Power BI directly, for example, and wants to build this report, I can say that they have to log in under their credentials. Because if I don't do that, then they might be using my credentials when looking at the data in Dataverse through this report, I mean. So here, though, well, let's try this. Let's say sign in. And also because I'm going to use it from Power Automate eventually. So let me, I think I had some problems with it, so let me uncheck it, but that's just assuming that I'm going to use it from Power Automate. So let's do it again. All right. One thing which is also worth mentioning here is that this workspace, so you see all the reports, you can actually go to the report right here, and you can build the report from Power BI. So in this case, the user who is looking at this report doesn't have to have a license for Power BI, actually, because this is premium capacity. So as long as those users have access to this workspace, which is done through the access button right here, so I can keep adding users as members, not as or maybe as viewers, not as contributors or admins. So those users will be able to access the report and probably build the report. And that's where that additional checkbox for the credentials, that's where that comes in. So anyways, I have the report. Now, how do I connect that report to the flow, right? So the report is published. Now let's go to the flow for a second. So just let me find that window. Here it is. Here's my flow. The reason, let's go to edit. This is an HTTP flow with the HTTP request as a trigger. The reason for that is because I'm using it from this ribbon button, but we'll probably get to that if we have time. So right now, this is an HTTP flow. It's a trigger there, right? So the method I'm using is get. And one of the parameters I would be passing through the URL is the ID of the opportunity. So let's say it's called from somewhere, I pass the ID. I would initialize a few variables here. We'll skip that for a second. So now let's go to the scope down here. So if that's a Power BI, what I'm trying to do, right? Because the other branch here is for Word template. But if that's Power BI, so here there is an action, export to file for paginated reports. It's looking at the same test premium workspace. The report I was using here before, it's the one I created before the demo, but now because I just published it under a different name, so here it is. I can just switch to that November 20 report. Just let me make sure that, so here I will need a parameter. I think it will pick it up, but I might have to reset the parameter. So let's do that. November 20. And then here, so it's all good. So down here, there is a parameter for the report, and I'll bring up the report itself for a second. So see, there is a parameter here, opportunity ID, and it's used in the query. So now I need to pass that parameter to the report if I'm doing a flow, and that's how I do it. So there is parameter name, there is output from the compose action right here, and actually this parameter comes from the URL when I call the flow. So here it goes. Then I set a variable just to pass this generated document to the response down below. Here I will pass it back to the caller, and I will actually send it by email as well. So what I can actually do right now, I don't even have to, well, first of all, I have to save it because I just updated the report. So I'll save it. And then here I'll copy the URL just to test it quickly. I can go here, I can paste the URL, and then I can add a parameter. So it's an additional parameter, which is supposed to be my opportunity ID, which I'll grab from here. So let's put it there. And if you look at it, and it fails. The server didn't, something failed. Well, let me see. Ribbon button. So the failure is here. Unable to process template action record ID input. So I probably mistyped the URL somehow. So okay, I will not be stuck on this. Let me just go here and see if it's still working there. And then I'll go to, let's check. If it's running, then we're good and we can just continue. It's running, so it seems that I just mistyped something in the parameter name. Anyways, I will not be stuck on that, so I'll just let it run. And then once it runs, so what are we going to see? First of all, I'll probably go here. And here you see that the report has been generated. That's for the new report. And you saw that it was just downloaded. So if I open that, that's going to give me that same downloaded report, right? I can use different formats. So here I used Word document, but I could also use PDF. I could use others. There is a drop down there which where I can choose from the format I want to use. So there's SSRS. Does it have to be for a single document? No, it doesn't, because I can put a table there, and I can show all the opportunities in my environment, for example. In that case, we would probably not be using this kind of integration because I might just have a link on the left side to the report, or maybe the users would just go to the workspace and load the report from there. But in this case, like the example here is more for having a print form for that specific opportunity. Now, if I looked at the now another scenario which I wanted to show though is doing it as a Word template, and so for that, let me update the flow just so that it's not using Power BI, but instead it's using Word template. So here is basically the same flow, right? It's just that inside here there is a condition which if the value here is false, then it's going to the right side where it's populating a Word template. And the way that Word template is created, I'll start there. So I'll open the Word template in just a moment. So I need to go to a different place here. So here's a template. So the key thing is that really what I did, yeah, I played with our table as well. So let me drop this so it's not confusing us. Okay, so that's one page. So what I did here, I just downloaded that original Word document or opportunity summary from the opportunity screen, which is there by default. And then I just updated the table here. So I put company name here. Everything else I kind of kept it. So primary contact, I think it's also coming from the flow now. What's happening here is that we don't need to connect this to Dataverse, so it's not connected to Dataverse at this point. There is no that when I go to the developer, there is no that mapping to the XML. But what I have to do is I have to start adding controls to this template. And for example, here's one control, right? So this is usually either on the developer tab right here. This is usually either a plain text control or maybe it's a repeater control. So one of those two. And sometimes, I mean, I saw like sometimes I would try using rich text control. It wouldn't work. So it is supposed to be plain text, it seems. So when I'm here, I add a control, and then in the control itself, I have to go to the properties, and I just need to provide the tag, and that seems I might need a title. So title tag, it's the same, but then what I put in here as a text is just for mostly for convenience, because I don't want this to be empty. I just want this to somehow identify what's like on the template, at least was going to show up there. But really, what what Power Automate is going to use, it's coming from these two properties. So company name, then there is primary contact control, which is also here and which has a tag primary contact. And then there is this part down here where I have a repeater. So actually, the way it's done, I would create a table. So let's say I would, let me see, I think I would insert it down below. And I'm probably just wanted to show you how does it work with the table. So if I insert a table, and then if I go to the developer and I start adding controls, right? So this is my first control. So here I would go to the properties and I would say here I want to show, what do I want to show? Let's say it's product line item, or maybe just to differentiate from the other ones. So let's call it line item name. And that's the only one I'll keep here just to save some time. So line item name here, I would put line item example. It will be replaced. So then, but then because this is a table, I would add. Normally, I would add more controls to the other columns, but right now I just want to add a repeater so that it shows me multiple tables as a result. So that's what I'll do. I go here, I'll select the whole row in the table, and then I'll choose repeater. And from the repeater, I can just have to be accurate to select the correct control, actually. So here I would say line. I will also call it like that here. And so there is no need to put anything in the control itself because it's just a container for the row table, or for the table row. So then I can save it. And the next step is to put that in SharePoint, because the Power Automate connector has to have this file somewhere in SharePoint. So that's what I'll do. Let me go to SharePoint right here. And then let's just, okay, so here's the document which was just updated. I'll push it there. Replace. So it's there now. Now I can go back to the flow, and because I haven't refreshed the flow yet, so right now it's still showing me, like if I look at this action in the flow, it shows me that there are products which I am passing there. There's company name and there's primary contact. Now, if I refresh it, is there anything I need to save? I don't think so. Well, I don't think so. So let's refresh. Yeah, that happens. So you refresh and then it goes to the wrong page, but I think it will still come back. Just give it a second. Okay, so here, let's go back to the flow. Okay, here's the scope, here's the condition, equal to. Oh, I think okay, that's what I was supposed to say, right? So let's say this is going to be a Word document now. So we'll have this. Then if I open this, you see how line items just showed up there. And this is because I added that additional table. So now I'll save it just so we have it. So now the way it works is that I have to kind of pre-populate those objects for the Word template, and then I have to pass them there. It doesn't have to come from Dataverse; it can come from SharePoint, Excel, or like from anywhere. As long as I have that structure which I can pass to the template, it's fine. So here, for example, for the products, here's what I did. I created an original array variable, which is called products. It doesn't have to be called like that. What's important is that everything in that variable is called exactly the same way it's called, it's done in the template. So if you look at this, not this, sorry. If I open that again. So if you look at this, you'll see that there is product name here. And if I go to the properties in the developer, it's product name. And then the other one is product quantity, product price, and product total. So if I go back here, that's exactly what I have to have in the array elements. So I have multiple products, and for each of those, I have to have those. I have to have an object, and the properties of that object are called exactly the same way they are called in the Word template. So here I kind of cheated. I didn't go to Dataverse, actually. I just hard-coded the values, but I would have to add Dataverse action to go to Dataverse and source the data from Dataverse. So I have two of those actions here. I have one to create one row and another one to create another row. And for this one, let me check quickly. So here, what's the name? It's properties, it's line item name, right? So if I cancel that and if I just extend my object here with another property and say line item name, this would be the first line item, and the second line item would be the second line item. So the second, and then I'll save it. And then here I will just pass the same object, but this time I added one more property. So I'll go here. I'll select it from the list, products. So products there. I hope it's gonna work. It's the same property, but I think it's still gonna work. So let's save it. And then I guess I'll just go back here and I'll click the summary and we'll see what happens. And one thing I always do is that I go to the history at this moment and see what's happening with the flow, whether it worked or not. Let's see. Even button handler. Actually didn't work. It just took. Oh, what did it download? So sorry. Hold on. Let me see something. So if I'm looking at this, where did it go? It still went on the left side, so it still went on the Power BI side, unfortunately. Let me update that condition again. So here there's a condition. If use Power BI equals, yeah, that's the problem of doing anything during the demo, because I said false here, and I shouldn't have updated anything here. So that should be true. So save, and this time it should go on the right side to the Word document. But here, summary again, this shouldn't take half a minute. This is much faster with Word documents because, again, of that 30-second slowdown in the Power BI action. So if I open this, it's still doing the same, right? It's like it's, yeah, not aligned to it perfectly. Let me try where did it actually go? All right, here it is. So when I enabled editing, it seems to be fine. But as you can see, right, so here at the top, it's still showing the same document, but then I also added that additional table, and now it's showing that additional table with all the values there. So that's pretty easy as well. But compared to the Power BI Paginated reports, it's somewhat more complicated to arrange things on the screen here because it's words, so I don't have that kind of perfect control over what goes there, where instead, like sometimes it misaligns things, sometimes it goes to the next page. Power BI can do that as well, but I find that SSRS before and Power BI now, they are easier to control what shows up in which places. Now, compared to the original Word template, like if you think of it, this Word template, it works with pretty much everything. So I can prepare the data. I don't need it to be coming from Dataverse if I have it somewhere else. I can merge the data from different data sources. I can schedule those Power Automate flows. Actually, what I did in this case, so there's a response which is going back to the client. But there is also an email which is sent to me. So if I go to the Outlook, I can see all those reports which we've been generating so far. They're just showing up here. And I think I just didn't, I called it invoice summary because that came from some other presentation, but it's the same Word document, right? So that's the latest one, for example. So I can send them by email, I can subscribe to them. That seems to be, and that's quite useful in many cases because even if there is that slowdown, I could make it so that I wouldn't be waiting for this in the Power BI Paginated report. Instead, I would click the button and the report would be sent to me by email, so I can continue working here instead of seeing that progress indicator. And then the report would come in by email. What else? There is a script here which is associated, which is linked to the summary button. So the button itself is done through Ribbon Workbench. So I mean, the XRM toolbox, Ribbon Workbench, right? And then there is a button here, which the summary button right here. It's relatively simple. So here there's a command, and then it calls a JavaScript. Why it's done this way? Because I tried it with the new command bar editor, and somehow I couldn't connect JavaScript there, so I did it the old way. There's a script. There is download invoice function. That function does quite a bit of work, but in the end, it just downloads the document, which is sent back from the Power Automate for the response action. So that's more or less what I wanted to show. I have a few more slides just to summarize those things. I don't think I have time to go to the script, so I'll just switch back to the presentation for a couple of minutes and to summarize, like I said, to summarize a few things there. So let me go there, just a second. Here we okay, that was the demo. So the next slide is pros and cons, and this is mostly for Power BI Paginated reports this time. So yes, when we are talking about Paginated reports, we can do pixel perfect reports, we can do print forms, multi-page reports, scheduling, Power Automate integration. There is Dataverse integration security. We can use SQL queries instead of HXML. And most importantly, it's very familiar to SSRS developers because it's pretty much the same interface, just a different tool. But there are some caveats. So premium capacity is required, and if you look it up on the Power BI pricing page, you'll see that it could be expensive. There is per user capacity, which is a very valid option, but there is one limitation there, which is you can only export reports from through the API once in every 5 minutes, and it doesn't depend on the report. It's basically per user. So this is not really for automation scenarios. It's more like maybe you need to do it like once. It's one-off scenarios, more like that. if you use per user capacity. Also, there is no UI integration between Power Platform apps like Canvas or model-driven and the Power BI Paginated reports. And in the same way, there is no integration between model-driven apps and Power Automate Word templates, but you saw how it's doable. It just requires a ribbon button and some JavaScript. And yes, like I mentioned before, Power BI, it takes 30 seconds at least to export. I mean, it takes 30 seconds plus a little bit on top of that just to process the flow, but 30 seconds is the delay in that action which exports reports to a file. One other thing which I didn't demo, but which you might keep in mind, is that for Power BI Paginated reports, there is what is called Power BI pipelines. It's actually not just for paginated reports, but also for Power BI in general. And it allows you to deploy reports into different stages. So you can have dev, UAT, production, and you can just use this to deploy those reports between stages. And the most important part is that you can configure a business rule and say that, business rule is Dataverse, but you can configure a data source rule and say that when the report is deployed to, let's say, this stage, then it should be connected to a different data source, which takes care of the ALM in that sense, because you start in the dev, you deploy it to UAT, and gets connected to UAT, you deploy to production, it gets connected to production. You don't have to do a thing there. And there are some links, like what are paginated reports, Premium FAQ, Power BI Report Builder. Don't have a lot of links for Word templates. And I guess that's about it for my presentation. Any questions?
I think there are a few questions in the chat. I can go through them. So first question is from Devi, and his question is it possible to store documents in blob storage instead of SharePoint in order to populate the Word document template?
I think that only connects to SharePoint, so I don't think that connector knows how to connect to the blob storage.
Yeah. And the second question, I think so you have already answered. The question was, how do you trigger flow from the button click? But I guess you have already covered that, so I'm going to skip that question.
All right.
The next question is, it's just a statement from Joe saying the report functionality in Access still beats all of them.
The report functionality, sorry?
Yes, report functionality in MS Access beats all of them.
Possibly.
Yeah. So Valentin is a big fan of SSRS report, and he has quite a few questions. So first question is, are links to child report supported here in paginated report is his question.
Yes, we are. So you can do child reports, you can do sub reports. It works.
Okay. So second question is, what are the restrictions on the SQL code? Can we use temporary variables or table variables?
No, we can't. I mean, there's TDS endpoint, so whatever restrictions we have on the TDS endpoint, that's like, those are the same. Like, you cannot use with statement, for example. I mean, you can use joins, and usually it's still more convenient than fetch XML, but off the top of my head, I wouldn't tell you what are all the restrictions, right? It just, you try and see what works, but I mean, in general, I find that fetch, where you have to write joins and like in that fetch XML format, this is much more complicated than using SQL, although one caveat is, I guess this is what is implied here, right? That if you go too advanced on the SQL side, then it will not support it.
Right. The third question is it necessary to Power BI? Is it necessary to have Power BI subscription?
To run the report, no, but I mean, it's like this. So you have to, because this is paginated report, you have to have premium capacity in some way. If the company has premium capacity, then you can share the report or publish it into the workspace, into the premium workspace, and anybody in the company can use it. But in order to publish it there, you have to have Pro license. So for the developer, you have to have the capacity and you have to have the license. Capacity can come in two ways. It can be premium capacity for the organization, which, like I said, it's a few thousands per organization. That's where it starts per month. Or it can be a personal per user premium capacity, which is something like $25, if I'm not mistaken, per month. But it has limits in terms of how often you can export that report into file from Power BI.
Right. Yeah. The last question that he has is, how about debugging? How do you debug a report?
You can. It's hard. I mean, it's the same as SSRS, I guess. You just start developing it here, and then, I mean, I don't know. I start with the SQL statement, and then I could maybe run that statement in the SSMS, in the SQL Management Studio. Once I have that running correctly, I would probably start putting everything here. But I mean, how do you debug SSRS? I'm not sure.
I guess that's how everyone does it, right? Run it in SSMS or use SQL for CDS, XML toolbox to run your queries, see if the output is correct or not. Yeah. Cool. So the next actually is a statement from Sumit, and he's saying that the public preview that Scott showcased might be more useful because that actually generates the Power BI report. So his question is, how would that compare to whatever you showed?
So it's my bad, I wasn't here yesterday. But build tab with summary with Power BI.
Yeah, Scott actually identified a new way of, there's a button available on each and every record in model driven app, and then once you run it, it generates a Power BI report on the fly. But then I guess, and this is just my guess, is that Power BI report, you don't have control on it because it's generated by the system, right? So it's running on the fly. Yeah,
I think so. What the other thing, I don't know if it's a paginated report. So because the difference between paginated and non-paginated is that here you can do multiple pages in the end. So if you want to have to show multiple opportunities, you can. If you want to show just one specific form for a specific record, you also can. It's just a matter of, like, in the dashboard reports, you can show summaries, but in this one, you can literally, like, I don't know, maybe you want to, what we are using, for example, we are using for the renewal notices. This is where we need to generate a huge list of thousands of notices for all the clients which we have. Just to print those, send them to the print shop, and then send them to the actual clients. And that, I don't think that's a scenario for the button. Even it's more like you go to Power BI, you do it this way.
Yeah. So there's one more question that we can get to before we run out of time. So it's from Dahir and Jesse. So Jesse's question is there a throughput limit on the number of paginated report export?
For the premium capacity per user, yes, there is one in every 5 minutes. For the premium capacity per organization, sort of yes and no, because premium capacity gives you some resources. So as long as you exceed those resources, that's your throughput limit. But if you are still within, then you're fine. And then there are different levels of premium capacity, but of course they are getting more expensive as you use it more and more.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you, Alex. It was nice having you on this, presenting on Power BI paginated reports, and also using Power Automate, how to use Power Automate to send the reports via emails. So it was really cool to see that use case. And yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
cool. It was nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. And Alex, before you drop off, there are a few questions in the chat. So if you don't mind answering them as well in the chat, that would be great.
Yeah, will do.
So everyone, next topic is going to be around Dataverse ALM and governance story. And our presenter is going to be Rami Monla. and he is a Microsoft MVP, and he's here from New Zealand. Hi, Remy.
Hey, Dinesh, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Doing good. Yeah, I can. How,
Awesome.
like, what's the time in New Zealand right now?
It's actually 9 a.m. I was going to tell you guys, I'm talking to you from the future. So it's Sunday morning in New Zealand, and I'm going to tell you your Sunday is going to be great. It's great in New Zealand in here, and I'm sure you guys are going to have a great time as well. I know Lin Zhao Wen, who's actually my neighbor here in Wellington, presented exactly 12 hours ago. So he did the session at 9 p.m. I'm doing my session at 9 a.m. now. It's all good.
Good. So yeah, great to have you here, Remy. So yeah, stage is yours. Feel free to present the screen.
Awesome. I'll share my screen. Let me know when you can see it.
Yes, we can.
All right, so today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Dataverse ALM story, as well as the governance story. So just a quick look at the agenda. I'll start by introducing myself, and then